Reverend Gunn, a circuit preacher renowned for casting out evil, agreed to conduct a proper exorcism in the cabin parlor. He sprinkled holy water, his voice rising in fervent Latin when every candle extinguished at once. An invisible force hurled the Bible into the fireplace where the pages caught flame, yet the covers did not burn. Gunn fled into the rain, his faith shaken, muttering that hell itself had staked a claim on Red River soil. By year's end, the Bell Farm stood cursed in the eyes of Adams. Travelers chose longer routes to avoid the property. Cowards whispered that the witch had grown so bold she rode the wind like a black-winged carrion bird, and always in the center of the maelstrom, John Bell felt the noose of Kate's vendetta tightening, though he could neither name the sin that provoked her, nor find the prayer that might appease her. Yet the worst had only begun. For deep inside the cabin walls, beyond the reach of prayer or reason, Kate sharpened her rage, promising a reckoning that would shake the very foundation of Adams, Tennessee. Chapter 2. The Voice of the Witch. Adams awoke to a January wrapped in hard frost, the fields glittering under a pale sun that offered no warmth. Yet inside the Bell cabin the air felt stifling, as though the hearth roared at full blaze even when no log lay on the grate. Every creak of timber, every snap of the settling roof echoed with the same unspoken question that haunted the family's eyes. What will she do next? They learned the answer just after the new moon. It began with Lucy humming a lullaby while folding linens, the same gentle tune she had sung to every child in turn. As her voice drifted through the parlor, a second voice joined, identical in tone and pitch, harmonizing from nowhere. Lucy's hands froze mid-fold. The melody slowed, warped, then slipped into dissonance. The unseen singer discarded proper words, replacing them with snarled fragments of scripture. Dust thou art, unto dust, twisting each phrase into a threat. When the lullaby ended, the witch laughed, soft yet triumphant, as if pleased by her own performance. That night, John hosted a gathering of neighbors desperate for answers. The long table groaned beneath cornbread, boiled ham, and black-eyed peas, comforts meant to steel frightened hearts. Pastor Christopher Gunn returned, reluctant but resolute, accompanied by Elder Joshua Hayes and 3 deacons armed with pocket Bibles and trembling courage. The men bowed their heads, fingers white around spoons, as Lucy recited grace. She had barely uttered amen when every candle extinguished in one breathless instant. Total blackness swallowed the room, but not silence. A raspy whisper slithered along the walls. Children of dust, drink and be merry, for the worms wait for all. Metal screeched, plates skidded across the tabletop, hurling peas and pork to the floor. A jug of cider levitated, spinning lazily before exploding against the far wall, shards cascading like icy rain. Elder Hayes shouted a prayer, the witch answered by reciting the same supplication backward, each syllable dripping contempt. When candles flared to life on their own, every dish sat perfectly upright, wiped spotless, as though the chaos had been nothing but shared delirium, save for a single Bible that now smoldered in the empty hearth, pages curling inward like burning petals. No one ate another bite. Word of the spectacle tore through Robertson County faster than wildfire in dry brush. Some scoffed, but most believed. After all, dozens could swear they had heard the witch speak. Within days, wagons clogged the muddy lane to the Bell Farm. Skeptics, thrill-seekers, clergy, even a traveling mesmerist who claimed he could charm any spirit from its lair. The mesmerist lasted less than an hour. He was found stumbling down the road at dusk, coat shredded, eyes vacant, muttering that a woman's voice in his skull had revealed the hour of his death. The witch finds a name on the 12th night after. Epiphany. Kate finally offered a name. Betsy sat by the hearth, attempting her sums by flickering firelight. The chalk shook in her hand. Columns of numbers blurred as exhaustion gnawed her focus. Suddenly the sleigh tripped from her lap, whirled round the room, and clapped against the mantel so hard it cracked. Letters scrawled across the surface by an invisible stylus. Kate. Hush fell. Then the voice slithered out of the rafters. Kate Batts's, which, if it please you, Kate Batts was a neighbor many considered quarrelsome, rumored to have cursed John over a land dispute years earlier. Whether the entity truly was Bats's restless spirit or merely borrowed her name for dread effect, no one could say. But from that night forward the haunting carried a signature. Kate delighted in parlor trick cruelty, snuffing lamps seconds before a cup shattered against someone's temple, untying apron strings so they fluttered to the floor like fallen leaves, singing hymns an octave too low, distorting piety into mockery. Yet her malice reserved its keenest edge for John and his 14-year-old daughter. A father brought low, John Bell's sturdy frame, once the envy of men half his age, began to betray him. His hands twitched. His jaw locked so tight Lucy spooned him broth between clenched molars. Some mornings he woke to find his shoes filled with blood, though neither foot bore a wound. Physicians blamed nervous fatigue, but neighbors whispered that Kate poisoned him with her very breath. One bleak afternoon John attempted fieldwork, refusing to let fear steal his livelihood. As he guided the plow, a sudden snap echoed. The yoke pins burst apart, though the wood showed no strain. The plowshare bucked, dragged him to his knees, and he collapsed in the churned soil, eyes rolling white, while the witch's laughter rippled across the empty acreage. Drury hauled him indoors as Kate crooned, "Plow the earth, John. It shall soon cover you, Betsy's torment." If John suffered the slow decay of body, Betsy endured an assault on mind and flesh. Invisible tresses wound round her wrists during church service, forcing her arms akimbo until the congregation gasped at the spectacle. At night her chamber rang with ghostly knocks that answered her every prayer like blasphemous Morse code. More than once she woke choking, a fistful of her own hair torn free and stuffed between her teeth. Young Joshua Gardner, Betsy's childhood sweetheart, braved the witch's ire to keep courting her. One snowy evening he knelt beside the well, beneath a crescent moon, and pressed a simple silver ring into her palm. Betsy's smile had barely formed when the ring flew from her hand, hurled into darkness so deep no torch could find it. The witch hissed from the hollow beneath the porch, "Let no vows be spoken in my hearing." Betsy wept, her sobs echoing through planks as thin fingers of frost crept along the eaves. Mockery in the meeting house. Pastor Gunn announced a public fast, calling the faithful to gather in the little whitewashed meeting house atop Oak Ridge. Congregants filed in, cheeks hollow from hunger, clutching candles against the chill. They prayed, sang, begged heaven for deliverance. When silence settled, the witch answered. Her voice cascaded from rafter to pew, male and female, young and ancient, harmonizing in a grotesque choir, reciting entire chapters of Genesis word perfect before shifting seamlessly into obscene limericks that turned ears scarlet. Then she revealed hidden scandals, Mr. Dobson's secret bottles, Widow Clark's affair indiscretions known only to God and the sinners themselves. Panic erupted. Some fled into the night. Others collapsed in shame. Gunn fell to his knees, tears tracking through ash smeared on his brow. Kate's finale came as a gust that burst every shutter, snuffed every candle, and rang the brass church bell thrice, though no rope was pulled. The echo lingered long after the meeting house emptied. Rumors spread beyond the river. Travelers carried tales of the bell witch to Nashville taverns and Knoxville markets, each retelling lengthening her shadow. A peddler claimed he saw her perched atop his wagon, face hidden beneath a widow's veil, though horses galloped full tilt. A midwife swore Kate guided her hands during a difficult birth, demanding the child be named Isaiah or risk damnation. The most sensational rumor reached a militia camp outside Gallatin that General Andrew Jackson himself vowed to test the witches. Metal soldiers wagered whether Old Hickory would prove braver than frontier preachers. Letters detailing the haunting and Jackson's intended visit soon found their way back to Adams, stirring hope and dread in equal measure within. The Bell household. A quiet before the storm, late February delivered an eerie calm. For 3 full days no plate smashed, no voice taunted, no child woke screaming. Lucy dared believe mercy had alighted. She opened the shutters, letting pale sunlight sweep away months of gloom. Betsy and Drew reventured to the riverbank, laughing at the crunch of thawing snow. That night, as the family knelt for prayer, the witch broke her silence. A single word, whispered so softly it could have been imagined soon. A draught swept the cabin, extinguishing every candle at once. The bells understood. Kate had paused only to gather strength, to sharpen claws unseen. Her next assault would not be measured in broken crockery or bruised skin, it would be war. Chapter 3. Jackson's Gamble. March 1818 found the muddy roads of Middle Tennessee trembling beneath the wheels of an imposing caravan. 25. Seasoned militiamen in weather-stained uniforms, 2 supply wagons, and a single carriage whose polished panels bore the unmistakable initials Aja Andrew Jackson, hero of Horseshoe Bend. Old Hickory himself plodded toward the Bell homestead. Rumor and bravado had coaxed the general south from Nashville. Pride kept him on the rutted path long after his aides begged him to turn back. Jackson despised superstition. Yet the bell witch story intrigued him in ways battlefield legends did not. If a specter could thrash hardy frontiersmen and humble pastors, he meant to look the devil in the eye and see whether powder or prayer proved stronger. Around campfires his men joked that the witch would run squealing the moment Jackson strode through the door. Their laughter echoed confidence they did not feel. The journey darkens. Trouble began 2 miles from the Bell farm. A wagon laden with tents lurched without warning, its rear axle snapping like dry kindling. Sergeant Lowry leapt clear. Private Sims was not so lucky, pinned beneath the collapsed frame, his shin cracked clean through, as comrades scrambled to free him. A cold gusts whirled out of a cloudless sky. In its wake, the horses reared, eyes rolling, foam flecking their bridles. From somewhere in the forest a woman's voice drifted, sweet as a lullaby yet threaded with mockery. Turn, brave soldiers. I have outfought mightier men than you. Jackson rode forward, jaw clenched, scanning the trees for pranksters. He ordered Captain Morrow to reload the wounded man onto the remaining supply wagon. They would not retreat. A mile later, the second wagon wheels bogged in a patch of road that appeared solid moments earlier. For men heaved at the spokes. The wheels refused to budge. Captain Morrow whipped the horses. They screamed, straining. But the wagon sat as if welded to bedrock. Jackson spat tobacco juice into the slush. By the eternal boys, he growled, this must be the very witch herself. The voice answered like wind through pipes, a sing-song croon that rolled across fence posts. Andrew Jackson, free them if you can. Enraged, the general drew his pistol and fired into the shadowed trees. Bark exploded. Laughter pealed from every direction. Then, as abruptly as it had seized, the wagon rolled free, nearly crushing Private Tuttle's foot. Jackson holstered his weapon in silence, the first seed of doubt taking root beneath his iron demeanor. Arrival at the Bell cabin. Dusk cloaked the farmstead by the time the party dismounted before the Bell porch. John Bell, gaunt and hollow-eyed, greeted them by lantern glow. Lucy curtsied stiffly, cheeks drawn. Jackson removed his hat and spoke with grave courtesy, but his soldiers were less restrained. Bets exchanged hands, knives flashed in games of mumble-typing. Bravado filled the air. Kate wasted no time. As supper was served, a humble spread of venison stew and cornbread, the bench beneath Corporal Hayes scooted backward of its own accord, dumping him onto the plank floor. Laughter erupted from his fellows until their spoons levitated, whirling like iron filings in a magnet's grip, then clattered against the rafters in a metallic rain. The witch sang above the din, her voice high and childlike. Welcome, riders. Your courage is thin, your bones are brittle, your souls taste sweet. Jackson slammed his fist on the table, demanding she show herself. The cabin trembled, crockery rattling across the boards, yet no figure appeared. Instead, the general's own chair jerked sideways, carrying him 6 feet in a single shove. His men leapt up, drawing sabers, steel flashed. Lamp shadows leapt. Suddenly every blade flew from its owner's grasp and embedded, point first, in the joists above, arranged in a perfect circle around the ceiling lantern. Silence fell. Sweat glittered on hardened brows. Jackson wiped his mouth, muttering, I see, madam, you have spirit enough. A night of ordeal. The Bells vacated their sleeping quarters so the militia could bed down in the main room, claiming the witch seldom ventured upstairs. Their claim proved hollow. Barely had Jackson's boots hit the floorboards when a lash struck the back of his neck, a stinging welt rising beneath his collar. He whirled, pistol in hand, but saw only the lilting shadow of the lantern around him. Men yelped as invisible fingers plucked at ears, slapped cheeks, yanked hair. Private McAllister's blanket twisted into a rope and cinched around his wrists before hoisting him halfway to the ceiling like trust game. The witch lectured them like rowdy schoolboys, her voice drifting from timber to timber. Did you think bullets could silence me, Andrew? I walked these woods when your great-grandsires cribbed their first teeth. Jackson barked orders none could follow. Rifles jammed, powder horns scattered, flints vanished. Even the flintlock he kept at his belt misfired, pan hissing but never sparking. A sulfuric odor filled the room. Corporal Hayes retched just past. Midnight, the tempo shifted. The witch began reciting the men's darkest secrets. Captain Morrow's desertion during an earlier skirmish, Private Sims's theft from regimental payroll, Sergeant Lowry's dalliance with a married woman. Each confession landed like a blow. Hardened soldiers begged mercy, falling to their knees. Jackson alone remained standing, though his lips trembled with fury. Name your purpose, he demanded. Why torment this family? Why hinder free men? Kate's response rolled like distant thunder. John Bell has sinned, and I am his reckoning. Stand between us, and you shall share his fate. No elaboration followed, just the creak of ropes as Private McAllister's bonds slackened, dropping him unceremoniously onto the floor. Dawn of disgrace. Gray light seeped through chinks in the shutters, revealing a room strewn with shattered crockery, spent cartridges, and pride. Not a man had slept. Jackson's western coat hung from the rafters. Arms knotted, buttons missing. The general lowered it without a word. At tea breakfast, none ate. The witch hummed lullabies, softer than birdsong, a taunt more unnerving than outright violence. Every fork bent double when lifted. Every mug leaked from hairline fractures that had not existed moments earlier. Jackson bowed to Lucy, thanked John for their hospitality, and ordered his party to saddle up. He offered no explanation, nor did the Bells ask. They all understood. He left behind a signed promissory note for the broken dishes, perhaps believing payment might lift a fragment of shame. As the column rode beyond the cornfields, the witch chased them with scornful applause, the sound echoing through the morning air like a volley of musket fire. Only once did she speak. Farewell, old hickory. Pray to meet foes of flesh, for I have stripped you of swagger. Jackson never publicly discussed the episode. In letters to a confidant, he wrote only that the power of that entity defies earthly explanation, though he faced British cannons and Creek warriors. He would quietly admit the bell, which left him sober to the fear of unseen things. Aftermath at Red River. Jackson's departure emboldened some and terrified others. Skeptics claimed the general's retreat proved the witch a fraud, perhaps a cunning network of ventriloquists and pranksters. But those who witnessed the confrontation felt a new dread settle over Adams. If even Andrew Jackson could not quell the haunting, what mortal could? The witch herself seemed invigorated. For days her laughter rang through empty fields. Clinging to the eaves at dusk, Betsy reported hearing her name whispered from the water well. Drury found all the corn crib doors ajar, grain spilling like gold into the dust. Kate's warning that livelihood meant nothing under her shadow. John Bell, weakened but stubborn, watched the witch's power multiply. He wondered nightly which of his past misdeeds had earned such wrath. Guilt, like a worm, burrowed deep, and the poison of dread seeped into bone. A new vow of vengeance. On the final night of March, the witch delivered a prophecy. Lucy, rocking little Esther beside the dying hearth, heard the crackle of embers form words. John Bell shall draw his final breath by year's end. None can stay my hand. Lucy's scream roused the household. Flames flared white, then snuffed, plunging the room into darkness thick as pitch. From that blackness came a whisper, soft, satisfied. Soon, so ended the month that humbled a general and emboldened a spectre. The bell which had faced the sword of the Republic and found it dull. Now she returned her focus to the family, whose name would forever be bound to her own. Chapter 4. Descent into darkness. April crept into Adams with fields of butter-yellow jonquils, yet the Bell homestead bloomed only sorrow. Jackson's retreat had been a public spectacle, and with it went all hope that earthly authority might curb the witch. Kate now roamed the property with brazen confidence, a tyrant reveling in conquest, the poison in John's Vainston bells. Decline accelerated, his uncestity gait became a shuffle. His voice, once firm, emerged in ragged whispers. At breakfast he reached for a pewter cup only to watch his hand convulse, cider sloshing onto the tablecloth. Kate cackled from the rafters. "Steady, farmer. The grave waits not for trembling fingers." A Nashville physician named Dr. Hobson arrived to examine John, armed with leeches, lancets, and modern arrogance. He declared the ailment a nervous wasting complicated by melancholia, prescribing mercury, bitters, and strict bed rest. The witch greeted this with derision. Hobson's satchel sprang open, vials smashing against the floorboards, releasing pungent fumes that drove everyone coughing into the yard. Hobson fled that afternoon, later writing that he beheld afflictions beyond the realm of physic. Betsy watched her father's cheeks hollow as night after night the witch forced his jaw to lock mid-sentence, silencing prayer. Sometimes John woke choking, claiming a stick was thrust crosswise into his mouth. When Lucy inspected him, she found fresh splinters on his tongue, a grotesque mimicry of the bridle used on wayward horses. Kate's dominion over the farm. The land itself began to rebel. Seedlings sprouted only to wither overnight, leaves blackened as though kissed by frost despite warm air. Milk turned sour before leaving the cow. A single rooster crowed at midnight, then toppled dead, eyes pecked out in the smokehouse every slab of salt pork hung upside down, hooks driven inexplicably through bone. Neighbors attempted charity, bringing preserves and fresh seed. Kate greeted them with insults in perfect imitations of their deceased relatives, dredging memories best left buried. One widow fainted upon hearing her late husband's voice chastise her for wasting candles. After that, gifts dwindled. The Bell farm became an island of dread cut off from the wider world. The justice of the peace. Desperate, John petitioned the local magistrate, Justice Thornton Peters, to witness the haunting and draft an affidavit. Peters, a stern man with legalistic faith, arrived with 2 clerks, intent on documenting fraud. The witch welcomed him. During the examination, Peters questioned Kate's motives. She responded by rattling off articles from Tennessee's criminal code with uncanny precision, accusing John of trespass against the natural order and harboring false virtue. Peters scoffed and requested tangible evidence. The cabin door slammed, quills lifted, scratching across parchment unaided, recording John's alleged misdeeds in a handwriting that matched no living hand. Then Peters's spectacles shattered. Upon his nose, glass slicing the bridge, blood dripped onto the document, blotting words. Kate whispered, "Seal it with truth." Peters withdrew the complaint and advised John to seek divine rather than civil remedy. Midnight courtships sabotaged. Meanwhile, Betsy and Joshua Gardner clung to young love as a lantern in gloom. Joshua proposed they elope to Kentucky where the witch's reach might fade. They met at the riverbank beneath dogwood blossoms, moon painting silver across water. Joshua slipped a new ring onto Betsy's trembling finger. A hush fell over the woods too still. From the river rose a pale shape, a woman in tattered muslin, hair splayed like waterweed around a skull-pale face. She glided across the surface. Empty eye sockets fixed on the pair. Betsy screamed. Joshua fired his pistol. The bullet passed through mist. The apparition dissolved, reforming behind them, mouth stretching impossibly wide as it shrieked, "No vows." The ring heated like iron in a forge, searing Betsy's skin. She flung it into the river where it hissed before sinking. Love fled. With it, Betsy collapsed, sobbing in Joshua's arms, knowing the witch ruled even her heart. Dream siege. With each sunset the witch invaded new frontiers. Dreams. Lucy dreamed of a coffin rocking gently at the foot of her bed. John inside, eyes open, lips blue. Drew redreamed he forged chains only to discover they bound his own wrists. Betsy dreamed of birthing a child whose mouth opened to reveal the witch's aged cackle. Sleep offered no reprieve, and waking hours blurred into exhausted twilight. The family moved like phantoms in their own home, startled by every creak. Only the witch remained vibrant, her laughter crisp, her taunts inventive, communion in blood. On Pentecost Sunday, the bells attempted communion at the cabin, bread freshly baked, wine decanted. As Lucy prayed, the witch hijacked her tongue, forcing her mouth to utter blasphemies until blood trickled from bitten lips. The wine pitcher shattered, staining the table crimson. Bread loaves molded before their eyes, sprouting wriggling maggots that writhed across linen. The witch intoned from invisible pulpit, "No body, no blood but mine." John collapsed in a seizure, limbs jerking, eyes rolled white. Betsy clutched her father's shoulders as Kate laughed, thunderous enough to shake dust from rafters. The burning Bible, Drury, incensed, tore to the loft and retrieved the family Bible, its pages already scorched at edges from past assaults. He hurled it into the hearth, daring the witch to defile sacred text. Flames flared blue, swirling like a cyclone contained within brick. When they died, the Bible lay unconsumed yet. Every page bore inked words in the witch's hand, "John Bell must die." Lucy tried to tear the pages free. They would not budge, fused as if printed from molten lead. A town divided. By midsummer atoms cleaved into factions. Some insisted the bells invited torment through secret sin. Others feared Kate's wrath should. They failed to offer support. Prayer circles formed, disintegrated when the witch mocked participants by name. Farmers claimed to see spectral lights dancing above the Bellfield's blue flames, swirling around invisible bonfires. The local blacksmith, Angus Cole, fashioned iron talismans said to repel spirits. He delivered one under cover of night and nailed it above the bell's doorframe. At dawn every nail lay melted into the threshold, iron pooled like quicksilver. Cole swore off further aid, convinced the devil himself opposed him. Lucy's plea. In late August, Lucy Bell ventured alone into the woods, falling to her knees beneath an ancient oak. She begged whatever mercy might linger in the witch's heart. Leaves rustled though no breeze stirred. The witch whispered, "Spare." "You? I am mercy, Lucy. For your husband I am justice." A cluster of wild blackberries ripened before Lucy's eyes, the only sweetness in months of terror. She gathered them, sensing a strange reprieve. But when she returned home, John began vomiting black bile, the berries perhaps a cruel jest at nourishment. Gathering storm. September fog draped the farm like funeral gauze. The witch's appearances grew less theatrical, more intimate. A cold hand brushing Lucy's cheek while she milked a cow. A voice humming in John's ear as he drifted into fevered sleep. Her power felt focused now, sharpened to a single point, preparing for an inevitable strike. On the equinox, a murder of crows circled above the cabin, their cries forming a cadence that sounded unmistakably like words. Soon, soon, soon. That night, John Bell finally voiced what everyone feared. In a cracked whisper, he told Lucy, "She means to kill me, and I fear no prayer can halt her." Tears welled but would not fall. Even sorrow felt exhausted. Lucy gathered the children round, and together they sang Rock of Ages, voices wavering but determined. As the final note faded, Kate answered with a soft lullaby, one Lucy had sung to the children years before, turning comfort into dread, promise into threat. End of harvest, end of hope when the last corn was cut. The bells stacked stalks in neat shocks. Next dawn, those shocks lay rearranged into a crude effigy, a man bound in corn husk ropes, head bowed. Around its throat hung John's battered work hat. A sign pinned to its chest bore a single word scratched in soot: December. The message was clear. The witch had set an execution date. Exhausted, famished, hearts fraying, the Bell family faced autumn's long shadows with a dawning realization. Nothing, no doctor, no general, no preacher stood between them and the curse. Winter approached, and with it the witch's promised harvest of souls. Chapter 5. Death comes to Adams. October ushered in a cold that felt older than the valley itself, an ancient chill that slithered beneath floorboards and coiled around marrow. Frost silvered the cornstalk effigy each dawn. its bowed head glittering like a grim crown. Every sunrise, John Bell noted how much closer winter crept, how much weaker his heartbeat sounded in his own ears, the slow erosion of a patriarch. John no longer tended fields. His world shrank to a high-backed chair by the hearth, a wool blanket, and the endless ticking of the mantel clock. Each tick reminded him there were fewer seconds left than there had ever been. Kate counted them aloud some nights, whispering 60, 59, 58, until John pressed palms over his ears and wept. Lucy brewed willow bark teas and spooned them between her husband's clenched teeth. The witch mocked the gesture, declaring in sing-song rhyme that no tonic of earth can mend what heaven despises. When John drifted to sleep, she blew gusts of icy breath across his face, shocking him awake with a gasp that sounded like drowning. The doctor from Charleston. Word of the haunting reached Charleston, where Dr. Ephraim Holliday, a physician famed for daring autopsies and radical tonics, insisted science might pierce superstition. He arrived with crates of instruments and an ego broad as the Cumberland. Holliday examined John for 2 hours, proclaiming the ailment a neurological aberration exacerbated by rural hysteria. That night, Holliday prepared an opiate draught, meant to quiet racing nerves. Before the first spoonful reached John's lips, it curdled, frothing like lye. Holliday stared, slack-jawed, as the liquid ate through the tin spoon with a hiss. On the wall behind him, words appeared in sooty letters, written by an unseen hand that smudged itself across plaster. No physic for the damned. The next morning, Holliday fled, leaving trunk and reputation behind. Neighbors later found his horse still saddled outside Nashville, the doctor gone without trace. Some claimed they heard a woman laughing from the treetops as the horse galloped riderless into mist. John's visions. As November nights lengthened, John lapsed into fevered dreams. He spoke of a vast field where headstones grew like wheat, each marker bearing his name. Overhead, a shadowed woman tended the crops, watering graves with ink-black water. Betsy dutifully scribed these ravings in a journal, hoping some clue might save him. Each entry ended the same: she waits in December. One dawn, John jolted upright, eyes wide and clear for the first time in weeks. He whispered that the witch had shown him a vial of milky liquid, promising the first taste would end his torment. He begged Lucy to burn every bottle in the house, every tincture, every jug of cider. By sundown, flames curled from the pit outside, carrying the sweet-sour scent of scorched medicine. Kate giggled from the chimney. "Burn what you like, farmer. My remedy rides the wind, Thanksgiving without thanks." The fourth Thursday of November arrived with a brittle sun. Despite fear, Lucy set a modest table: roast pheasant, pumpkin custard, corn pudding, hoping gratitude might blunt despair. As the blessing was offered, the tablecloth twitched, dishes jittered, and a fresh-baked loaf split down the middle, steam escaping like a dying breath. From within, maggots wriggled. The witch intoned, "Eat, for soon you feast in soil." No one touched a bite. Afterward, Betsy stepped outside to breathe cold air unsullied by dread. She found footprints leading from the porch toward the family. Cemetery small prints, as if a child walked barefoot through frost. At the cemetery gate they vanished. Nestled among headstones stood a new marker of raw cedar, bark still clinging. John Bell, December 1820. Betsy fainted upon seeing her father's unchiseled grave. The poisoned vial, December 19th, dawned slate gray. Snow whispering across planks like hushed conspirators. John's breathing had grown shallow, his lips tinged violet. Drew researched the cupboard for camphor and found an unfamiliar vial, glass opaque as moonstone, stopper sealed with crimson wax. A sour almond scent seeped from a hairline crack. Lucy, suspecting witchcraft, ordered the children away. Yet John, delirious, grasped the vial with trembling fingers as though recognizing an old friend. Before he could drink, Lucy snatched it, heart pounding. Kate's voice slithered from the rafters. "Give him his draught, dear wife. Mercy in a mouthful." Lucy hurled the vial into the fire. It burst in green flame, a pungent smoke curling skyward to form what looked like a grinning skull before dispersing. John collapsed, eyes rolling back, muscles seizing. The witch crooned a lullaby, each note sinking like a stone into the family's soul. A night without dawn through the longest night of the year. John battled unseen foes, arms thrashing, nails raking sheets. Betsy held one hand, Lucy the other, whispering psalms. At midnight, the clock pendulum froze mid-swing. Outside, every animal on the farm brayed and howled as if sensing the veil thinning. The witch whispered countdowns, slower now, savoring each numeral: 10, 9, 8. At 1, John's body went still. A silence followed, total, absolute, impossible. The hearth fire extinguished, though logs glowed moments before. Then Kate's triumphant declaration filled the cabin, a voice echoing as if shouted down a cavern. "It is finished. John Bell was dead." The witch's funeral oration. Snow fell thick on December 20th, muffling footsteps as neighbors gathered. For burial, Reverend Gunn attempted scripture, but his throat seized. Each time he spoke, Kate repeated the verse in a mocking falsetto until words turned meaningless. When pallbearers lifted the coffin, unseen hands slapped the lid, producing hollow booms that matched the beat of a drum. A T graveside, wind tore prayers from lips. As the coffin was lowered, Kate eulogized her victim. "Here lies John Bell, who feared what he sowed would sprout. Lo, the harvest." Laughter rippled through leafless trees, shaking snow from branches in white cascades. The final shovel of earth had barely settled before the headstone split down the center, a jagged crack like a lightning scar. No mason could later repair it. Each attempt ended with tools shattering or hands blistering. Aftershocks. That night, the cabin walls exhaled, boards relaxing as if freed from strain. For the first time in months, no knocks disturbed sleep, no voice crawled through keyholes. Only the steady drip of icicles outside broke the hush. The family lay awake, fearing the quiet more than chaos. At dawn, they discovered John's chair had vanished. Where it once sat, the floor bore scorched rings, black as pitch. In the hearth, ash-formed letters. "Rest," Lucy, hollow-eyed, whispered. "Is it over?" The witch answered from the empty chair, now miraculously returned to its place. For him, a community in mourning and fear. Adams spoke of little else. Some hailed the witch as divine instrument, others cursed her as demon. Farmers avoided Bell land entirely. Children dared one another to touch the cracked headstone. Few did twice. Elder Hayes declared the valley under judgment, urging repentance. Yet in private, even he barred his shutters at dusk. The family shattered without John's steady presence. The household felt unmoored. Lucy moved through rooms like a wraith, fingers grazing furniture for reassurance. Drury shouldered farm duties but flinched at every crow caw. Betsy, grief layered atop terror, spent hours staring at her reflection, searching her own eyes for witchlit shadows. Kate, satisfied with victory, spoke less often, but her presence lingered a cold corner of each room, a metallic tang on the tongue, a sense that breathing itself required permission, a promise. Unfulfilled, on New Year's Eve the witch issued one final prophecy: "Grief will split this family like lightning splits oak. One shall flee, one shall fade, one shall kneel before me, then I shall rest." For a time, the Bells clung to one another beneath candlelight, dreading which doom belonged to whom. Midnight chimed, and for the first time in memory Kate did not interrupt the hour. An owl hooted beyond the barn, snow whispered against windows. The witch's lullaby did not come. The war was not over, only paused. Yet for a fleeting heartbeat, silence offered the faintest taste of hope. Chapter 6. The Final Assault, January 1821 arrived beneath skies the color of kettle soot. The witch had promised a pause, but pauses end, and dread returned with the biting wind. Snowdrifts banked against the cabin, muffling footsteps yet amplifying every creak of pine within. Those walls the Bell family braced for what Kate called her last waltz. A household on edge. Without John's steady presence, every room felt wider, emptier, as though the cabin itself mourned. Lucy lit extra candles against the gloom. Their flames quivered, stretching sideways as if drawn toward an unseen breath. Drury slept near the hearth, musket across his knees, though he knew steel meant nothing. Betsy lingered by frostromed windows, staring into the night like a lighthouse keeper scanning for phantom ships. For 3 weeks the witch merely watched. No broken crockery, no slaps or pinches. Only the faintest echo of humming drifted through rafters at dawn, a mother's lullaby twisted minor, the silence frayed nerves worse than violence. It was the stillness of a predator crouched before the pounce. Betsy's broken courtship on. The second Sunday of January, Joshua Gardner returned, determined to rescue Betsy from despair. He proposed they flee to Nashville and marry, trusting distance to dull the curse. Betsy's heart leapt. Hope tasted sweeter than any honey. She packed a small satchel that night, slipping her mother a tear-stained note. They met pre-dawn. By the road, mule saddled, snow crunching beneath boots. As they mounted, a woman's voice drifted through the hush, soft, pleading. "Stay, daughter." Betsy froze. It was Lucy's voice, yet Lucy slept within the cabin. A second voice followed, deeper. Masculine, Joshua's own father calling him home. The couple exchanged bewildered glances. Then the forest erupted with voices. Every relative, every childhood friend, all begging them to turn back. The chorus crescendoed, overlapping pleas until language dissolved into a roar. Snow lifted in. Swirling spirals, spinning around the mule in a blinding vortex. The animal reared, eyes white, unseating both riders. As they sprawled in the drifts, the wind halted. Betsy looked up to see a single figure 10 yards away, a woman in white. Hair black as coal, face veiled in gauze. She lifted one hand, fingertip pointing toward the cabin. Joshua scrambled to stand between Betsy and the specter. The witch spoke not with thunder but a whisper. "If she leaves, she dies tonight." Her veil fluttered, revealing a smile carved. Too wide for any human jaw, the wind howled anew, toppling Joshua. When he regained footing, the figure was gone, only snowflakes stumbled through moonlight. Betsy returned home, heart splintered. Joshua, swallowing tears, rode north alone. Lucy's illness. February snow retreated, revealing earth leached of color. Lucy developed a sickness, deep fatigue, lungs rattling with each breath. Kate visited nightly, cooing from the ceiling. "Sleep, sweet mother, rest until bone meets bone." On Valentine's Eve, Lucy coughed up a clot of blood shaped like a thorned rose. The witch laughed, declaring it her gift. Physicians dared not return after holiday's fate. Drury brewed willow bark again, but the tea soured in its own steam. Every edible root in the cellar turned black. Hunger gnawed the family even as their farm lay buried under rotting produce the witch spoiled months prior. Drury's defiance, fury. Tempered Drury's fear. One frigid dawn he marched into the cornfield ruins armed with a Bible, a hammer, and 12 iron spikes. He nailed a verse from Psalm 91 to each fence-post, invoking the angelic guard. Each hammer blow echoed through the valley a defiant heartbeat. When he finished, the air felt lighter, if only for a breath. That night thunder cracked, though no storm brewed. At every fence-post the verse burst into blue flame, iron spikes glowing like stove eyes before melting. A laugh rolled across the acreage, shaking snow from barren limbs. Drury watched helpless as sparks fell onto furrows, spelling words only he could read. Faith is fodder, Lucy's vision. Lucy hovered near death. Betsy knelt at her bedside when a cold hush swept the room. The witch appeared, not voice. Alone but shape, smoke coalescing into a woman wearing ragged muslin, face pallid, eyes hollow. She stroked Lucy's hair with a tenderness that chilled the blood. "You mourn a husband," she whispered, "but his sin fed me. Ask what price." "Would buy your peace." Lucy mustered a rasp. "Leave my children." Kate tilted her head. "Give me one, and the rest may breathe easy." A kneeling soul. Her gaze fell upon Betsy. Betsy recoiled. Lucy clutched her daughter's hand, pain igniting maternal fire. "No," she croaked. Kate's form dissolved, voice lingering like echo in an empty hall. Then watch them wither. The return of the general. News reached told Hickory that John Bell was dead, yet the witch raged on. Pride peaked. Jackson dispatched a single aide, Major Elias Ballard, with orders to observe, not battle. Ballard arrived mid-mark, skeptical yet wary. First night, he recorded rhythmic knocks tracing the cabin walls like marching boots. Second night, his ink bottle spilled, letters forming welcome back, general's man. Third night, Ballard woke gagging on invisible hands. He fled before dawn, leaving his journal. The final entry scrawled across 2 pages. She is no ghost. She is calamity. Jackson read the report and declared the matter closed. He would not return the witches. Ultimatum. Spring equinox dawned with brittle sunlight. The witch spoke at breakfast, her voice emanating from the iron kettle. Choose. One shall kneel. At month's end I depart for 7 years if I am obeyed. The bells argued through tears. To forfeit a child felt unthinkable. To refuse risked annihilation. Betsy volunteered herself, determined to save her brothers, but Lucy forbade it. Drury offered instead, yet Kate sneered, "Not you, plowboy. I crave the lamb, not the ram." Her meaning clear, Betsy or none. Betsy's night of terror. On the final night of March, Kate began her assault. Betsy's bedroom door slammed and vanished solid wall where hinges once sat. The room grew colder than any Tennessee winter. Frost feathered the quilt. Her breath crystallized mid-air. Moonlight through the window dimmed until only darkness remained. From that dark came whispers, the voices of children pleading, mothers wailing, lovers sighing final farewells. Betsy felt hands small, countless pressing her shoulders, guiding. Her 2 kneeled, terror warred with duty. Her knees buckled. That moment Lucy collapsed downstairs, coughing blood. Drury shouted prayers, voice cracking. The witch roared, "Choose." Betsy sank halfway, then stopped. A spark ignited within, her father's laughter, her mother's lullaby, John's unwavering strength even in death. She found her voice. No silence answered. The hands withdrew. Frost melted in seconds, drenching the floor. The vanished door reappeared, knob rattling. Kate spoke, voice softer than dusk. "You deny me." Betsy opened the door. Empty hallway, downstairs, Lucy's. Cough ceased. Drury, mid-prayer, stared at his healed mother, bewildered. The witch whispered one final sentence. "Very well, 7 years I sleep. Then we begin anew." A gust swept through the cabin, extinguishing every lamp. When Drury struck flint, Kate was gone. Aftermath of the Sieg dawn ushered birdsong unheard. 4 months, the oppressive weight lifted. Floorboards no longer groaned beneath phantom steps. Lucy rose from bed unaided, color warming her cheeks. Betsy stepped outside to find crocuses blooming. Where snow lay nights before, neighbors approached cautiously. Finding the bells alive, they marveled. Some attributed deliverance to Drury's verses. Others to Betsy's defiance. None dared claim understanding. That Sunday, Reverend Gunn led service within the cabin walls. He read Psalm 30, "Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning." No mocking voice interrupted. Hymns rose and challenged. Hope sprouted like wildflowers. Yet beneath that fragile peace, memory lingered, the promise of a sleeping curse set to wake in 7 years. The family bore invisible scars, each creak of timber a reminder. Betsy tucked her terror deep, but felt its pulse in quiet moments, counting days until the witch's prophecy matured. For now, though the bells breathed freely, fields would be sown, laughter might return, and life would resume its humble course beneath Tennessee skies. But every sunset, as shadows lengthened across the corn rows, a single question rustled the leaves. When Kate wakes again, who will kneel? Chapter 7. The Witch Awakens. 7 years slipped by like mist over the Cumberland, yet every dawn the Bell family counted another day toward the witch's promised return. They rebuilt fences, reseeded fields, and lulled themselves with chores. But dread lingered beneath the surface, coiled like a sleeping serpent. 1828, the year of the Omenbetsy Bell. Now a woman of 22 had wed Richard Powell, a schoolmaster whose calm intellect soothed her nightmares. They moved into a modest cottage a mile from the original farm. Lucy lived with Drury in the main house, which they renovated, determined to overwrite horrors with fresh whitewash and new floorboards. But some stains run deeper than timber. On the last day of March 1828, a crisp morning bright with dogwood blossoms, Betsy found a bundle on her doorstep, a single black feather, tied with crimson thread. Her blood chilled. She whispered a prayer, but when she blinked, the feather burst into cinder without flame, drifting away on an unfelt breeze. She did not tell Richard. Some burdens must be borne alone. The first knock, April 1st, dusk, Drury leaned over the kitchen basin when a solitary knock echoed from the back door, timber against timber, deliberate as a judge's gavel. He froze. Another knock, louder. Lucy's spoon clattered into stew. Drew reopened the door to darkness. Only night-blooming honeysuckle perfumed the air. The third knock came from the attic. The voice returns that night as a thunderstorm rolled. Across Red River Valley, the witch's lullaby wove through rain-soaked shingles. Soft, almost tender, "Did you miss me?" Lucy's breath caught. Drew reclenched his fist, nails biting palm. The lullaby shifted into words. "The lamb has strayed. I come to collect." Betsy's dream in her cottage. Betsy woke screaming. She dreamed of an endless hallway lined with mirrors. In each reflection she saw herself kneeling, head bowed, while a shadowy woman combed her hair with fingers of bone. Upon waking, she found strands of her hair braided into intricate knots she could not undo. Richard lit a lamp and recited scripture until dawn, but the knots remained, smelling faintly of wood smoke. The river of Face May brought floods. The Red River swelled, devouring banks. One morning Drury rode to inspect damage. At a bend near the old ferry crossing, he saw faces beneath the water pale, eyeless, mouths gaping in silent screams. He stumbled back as the water's surface erupted with laughter, the river itself speaking, "So many souls to reap. Come, farmer, give your tithe." When Drury returned home, his boots left wet footprints shaped like infants' feet. Lucy's candidacy refused to cower. She set a candle on John's cracked headstone each night, praying it might guide restless spirits to peace. On the seventh night, the candle flared blue-height, illuminating an inscription newly carved beneath John's name, "The Lamb Returns." No chisel marks scarred the stone. It was as if the words had always been there, waiting. The gathering storm at the cottage amid thunderheads bruised the sky. Betsy stood at her garden gate when a gust lifted her bonnet, carrying it into the trees. She followed, branches creaking overhead, though no wind stirred. Deeper in the grove she found the bonnet impaled on a thorn. It speared the exact black feather she'd discarded months before. Beneath it lay a clay doll with straw hair, eyes stitched shut, knees bent as if mid-prayer. The witch whispered from every leaf, "Kneel and be spared." Betsy ran. Richard's Calendar Powell, rational to fault, confronted the legend. He invited neighbors to witness a vigil, lanterns lit throughout the cottage, Bibles on every table, hymns sung until throats cracked. At midnight the lamps dimmed, an unseen frost-trimmed glass, and voices echoed from within the chimneys, children reciting the alphabet backward in perfect unison. Hymn books slapped shut, a Bible floated, pages riffling until it landed on Isaiah 34:2-14, "And the satyr shall cry to his fellow. The screech owl also shall rest there, and find for herself a place of rest." The book slammed closed. A feminine sigh drifted overhead. "Here is my rest." One by one, lantern flames turned black, emitting no smoke. Richard's rationality cracked like thin ice. The night of blood rangily forth celebrations rang across Tennessee, but at the Bell Farm fireworks were replaced by dread. Clouds gathered though the day shone clear. At sunset crimson droplets fell, blood-tinged rain pattering on clapboards, staining soil. Drury rushed outside. The drops vanished on contact, leaving no mark but a metallic smell. The witch laughed. Voice dripping irony, "A salute in my honor." Lucy wept, convinced the rain foreshadowed death. The sin revealed desperate for understanding. Drury scoured John's old ledgers. Between pages he found a brittle letter dated 1814. John Bell had purchased disputed land from Kate Batts's late husband, and in the transaction underpaid by 20 acres through manipulated survey lines. The revelation struck like lightning. John's secret sin, perhaps the seed of the haunting. Drew reread the letter aloud in the cabin. daring Kate to answer. Silence pressed heavy, then a whisper. Confession is ash. The fire still burns. Betsy's reckoning ghost's dog-day heat suffocated crops. Betsy, weakened by sleepless nights, fell ill with fevers that brewed hallucinations of a woman standing at her bedside, eyes twin voids. One blistering afternoon, Betsy wandered to the riverbank, nightdress clinging to sweat-damp skin. She stepped into shallow water, murmuring lullabies backward. Richard found her waist-deep, fingertips tracing eddies, when he touched her shoulder. She shrieked, voice no longer her own. "I kneel?" Richard dragged her ashore. That night he bound her wrists with soft cloth, fearing somnambulism. In candlelight he saw bruises blooming around her knees as though pressed upon gravel. The covenant. Ritual September equinox approached. Old stories claimed one could banish a witch by burying a hair braid, a page of scripture, and a drop of innocent blood at a crossroads under full moon. Richard, Lucy, Drury, and 2 trusted neighbors prepared the ritual. Betsy lay enfevered. Sleep, hair plaited with psalmic ribbon. A T midnight clouds parted, revealing a gibbous moon bleeding red. They buried the braid at the old mill crossroads, reciting Psalm 23. As the last shovel of dirt tamped down, wind shrieked through maples, uprooting saplings. The ground split, tossing earth like ocean waves. From the fissure rose Kate's laughter. Deafening, blood buys nothing but more hunger. The ritual failed. Worse, Betsy's fever broke into violent seizures. She whispered one phrase on repeat, "The hollow willow. The hollow willow." Until voice rasped raw. The hollow willow. Drury recalled an ancient willow by the creek, trunk split, interior hollowed by lightning years prior. He and Lucy carried Betsy on a quilt to the tree beneath harvest moon. Fireflies shimmered like embers. Floating skyward, Betsy's eyes fluttered. When her palm touched the bark she stilled, breath evening out. The witch's voice slithered from tree hollow. A lamb returns to the fold. Lucy, tears streaking dust, pleaded, "Take me instead." Silence. Then, too late for substitutes. Betsy's choice within the willow's cavern. Betsy felt warmth, a pulse echoing her heartbeat. She heard faint singing voices of her younger self and siblings at play. For a moment, peace. Then Kate whispered inside her mind, "Kneel willingly." And York and Livin touched until their graves. Betsy's knees bent, her forehead lowered toward moss-covered roots. As she knelt, a memory of John flashed, his smile, calloused hand steadying hers on a plow handle, whispering that courage means planting seeds you may never see bloom. She halted, she rose. No, Kate's scream ripped through the grove, branches flailing. The willow shuddered as though struck by gale. Betsy staggered back. Drury and Lucy shielded her as bark splintered, showering them with shards. A crack thundered. The willow split anew, trunk cleaving down to roots. From the exposed heartwood oozed pitch-dark sap, forming letters as it flowed. 7 more. The sap ignited, flames blue as winter moon, consuming the tree from within. Yet no heat kissed their skin. As embers died, the witch spoke one final time that night, voice distant, "I tire of disobedience. 7 winters I gather strength, then I claim what is mine." A hush followed, cicadas silent, creek muted, world holding breath. The witch was gone. Echoes and aftermath. Dawn's first light found the willow reduced to charred husk, its shadow stretching like a scar across morning mist. Betsy's bruises faded, fever subsided. Yet inside she felt a thread tethering her to something vast and starless. Richard documented every event, determined to warn future generations should prophecy ripen again. Lucy prayed with renewed fervor, while Drury considered confessing John's fraud publicly, hoping truth might weaken Kate's claim. Autumn leaves fell, blanketing charred roots. Birds returned to orchards. Life resumed, cautious, fragile, glancing over shoulder toward evenings when shadows lengthened. But each family member knew the reprieve was loan, not gift. The witch would wake again, and next time 7 winters. Hence she would not parley. Chapter 8. The Eternal Legacy. 7 winters passed. Snow fell and melted, babies were born, and headstones weathered under lichen. Yet every bell woke each dawn with the same silent calculation. How many days remain? 1835, the year of reckoning. On January of 1835, the seventh winter foretold the Cumberland lay entombed beneath ice. Betsy, now mother to two daughters, tucked them in each night, whispering prayers older than memory. Lucy, hair silvering but spirit embowed, kept vigil by the cracked hearthstone. Drury tended fields scarred with half-remembered footprints, soil that refused to forget. On Twelfth Night, a lonely wind cut through the valley, carrying a familiar lullaby. It wound through shutters, up chimneys, across frost-crusted panes. Settling in hearts that had tried to heal, the witch had awakened. The return prophesied. The first sign appeared in the family Bible pages, fluttering despite closed windows until they rested on Ecclesiastes 3:15. That which hath been is now, and that which is to be hath already been. Two words burned into the margin. Kneel now. That same dawn, Richard Powell discovered livestock penned in circles, facing inward, eyes rolling white. The animals bleated in unison, three shrill notes that matched the cadence of the witch's infamous laughter. Lucy's final bargainlessly dreamed of John for the first time since his death. He stood in cornrows lit by moonlight, mouth sewn shut with black thread. In his hand he held the milky poison vial, stopper unbroken. He pressed it into Lucy's palm. She woke clutching air, but upon lighting a lamp found the vial resting on her bedsheet, wax seal untouched. Lucy, heart hammering, understood the witch had placed a weapon in her hands. Not to free them, but to test resolve. At dusk, Lucy carried the vial to John's graveside. The cracked headstone pulsed with cold. She spoke aloud. I offer myself, Kate, end this. The vial dissolved into mist. A voice answered from beneath, the earth reverberating through frozen ground. Too late for martyrs. The children under Betsy's daughters, Clara and Ruth, awoke to find hair plaited tight, scalp bleeding at roots. In candlelight they saw words etched into braids. Little lambs. Betsy severed the plaits in horror. As each braid hit the floor it wriggled like a snake, turning to ash. Clara asked, Mama, does the wind have teeth? That night the cottage windows fogged with frost, forming letters no hand could trace. Kneel or I feast. Drury's standardry, hardened by decades of toil and terror, resolved to confront Kate at the epicenter. John's grave he staked. Iron crosses at each compass point, poured salt in a perfect circle, and lit for tallow candles. Holding the brittle letter exposing John's fraud, he read the deed aloud, voice quavering but clear. Hear me, Kate Batts, the sin is confessed. Take the land, take my life, but spare those who did not choose this burden. Wind snarled, extinguishing candles. Salt lifted in a cyclone, stinging eyes. The witch's voice roared, not whisper but thunder. Confession without contrition is dust. Lightning cracked from a clear sky, striking the iron cross at Drury's feet. He was thrown backward, boots smoking, yet lived. In the charred soil letters burned, Lamb, the night of black snow for brewery. 13th black snow drifted from cloudless heavens, each flake melted on contact, leaving ink-dark smudges. Fields looked bruised. Barns wept pitch along seams. Traveling preacher Elijah Hargrove declared the snowfall a devil's covenant, urging the bells to flee. But where could they run? The witch's shadow stretched further than any road, the last stand in the cabin on Candlemas night. Lucy, Betsy, Richard, Drury, and the girls gathered in the restored cabin walls, repainted yet still echoing with memory. They placed a single oil lamp on the table, opened Bibles at random, and began singing Abide with Me. The lamp dimmed. Smoke poured from the wick, coiling into a feminine shape at room's center. The figure solidified, ragged muslin dress, hair wild, face both beautiful and corpse-pale. Eyes black pits reflecting candle flame. Kate gazed at Betsy. 7 winters past you refused me. Kneel, and I depart for good. Betsy stepped forward, voice steady. Your rage is rooted in a crime my father committed. I bear none of it. I will not kneel. Kate's fingertips brush-hovered Clara's cheek. Frost spread across the girl's skin. Betsy's resolve wavered. Richard raised a crucifix. The witch blew a kiss. The crucifix twisted, metal screeching until it formed an inverted shape. Richard dropped it, fingers blistered. Drury held out John's fraudulent deed. The land is yours. Let the innocent live. Kate smiled, lips splitting wider than human possibility. Innocence. They carry his blood. Clara's songous tension cracked the air. Clara, only 6, began humming the very lullaby Kate once twisted, her child's voice pure, unafraid. Ruth joined, harmony wavering but earnest. The melody floated like dawn mist, uncorrupted. Kate faltered. Her form flickered, edges blurring. Lucy, eyes shining, whispered scripture over the song. Perfect love casteth out fear. She stepped toward the witch, arms open not in challenge but embrace. The cabin's temperature plummeted, windows shattered. Inward, snow swirled, yet Lucy's breath remained visible, warm, a halo in frigid air. She spoke again. Kate Batts, human once, wronged once, bound by hate. Take my forgiveness. The witch screamed, a sound like iron tearing, yet her outline shrank, dress whitening, face smoothing into gentler lines. For one heartbeat she looked merely sad. The shattering and the silencia clap thundered through the room. Oil lamp exploded, showering sparks. Everyone shielded faces. When embers faded, the cabin stood intact. Windows whole, lamp wick relit, flames gentle. No trace of Kate. Clara's cheek thawed. Frost vanished. The inverted crucifix straightened, metal knitting seamlessly. Outside, black snow turned white, medicine, blanketing fields in pristine hush. From the hearth rose only the crackle of peaceful fire. The witch did not speak again. Dawn of uncertain timering, sun gilded snow like powdered gold. Birds returned, chirping tentative. Drew reventured to John's grave, the crack sealed, headstone smooth as polished river stone. The milky vial reappeared at its base, stopper intact. Now half buried in fresh snow, he picked it up. Inside sloshed clear water. He poured it onto soil. The ground absorbed every drop, a sigh escaping the earth, as though thirst quenched after centuries. Years without laughter, and with it months passed, free of knocks, whispers, or omen. Lucy's health improved. Laughter, timid at first, resurfaced. In hallways, Betsy's nightmares dulled, though she sometimes woke to faint scent of honeysuckle on winter air. Richard compiled the events into 3 leather-bound volumes, sending copies to theological colleges. Scholars scoffed, yet those who visited the valley left change, some shaken, some serene. A legend rooted in soil in 1840. Drew resold a portion of the land, including the hollow willow's charred stump, to a traveling preacher intent on building a chapel. Foundations laid, but every nail driven into stump-adjacent soil bent at right angles. Construction halted. The stump remains, musk-cloaked, children daring one another to touch its splintered heart. Locals speak of a woman in white wandering cornrows on moonless nights, head bowed, whispering lullabies. Some say it is Kate still searching. Others insist it is Lucy safeguarding progeny. Travelers report footsteps pacing porch boards at midnight, sometimes followed by gentle knocks that echo but harm none. A memory, not a menace. Epilogue of the curse, whether Kate was appeased by forgiveness, overpowered by pure song, or merely retreated to brood, no one can say. The bells marked no further prophecy dates, yet each generation teaches the tale. Pride breeds sin, sin breeds vengeance, and vengeance devours all unless broken by grace. On calm Tennessee nights, if you stand among hushed cornrows and listen truly, listen, you may hear a distant lullaby riding the wind. Some claim the melody feels softer now, mournful rather than malevolent, as though a weary spirit finally rocks herself to sleep. But when the wind shifts, sudden and cold, rustling leaves encounter rhythm, hearts quicken. For the bell which, bound to soil and blood, may never be fully at rest, only dreaming beneath Cumberland's starlight, waiting for another voice, angry, broken, unbending to call her name, braved every page of the curse of the bell, which felt the chill in the cornrows, heard the whispers in the dark, and walked with the bells through 2 centuries of terror. If this story left your pulse racing and your lights burning late into the night, then you're exactly the kind of fearless soul we need in our growing community of horror lovers. Subscribe now to Crazy Real Horror Stories so you never miss the next true nightmare we drag from the shadows. Your click fuels future investigations into history's darkest corners and tells the algorithm that terror still has a place at the table. Join us if you dare, like, share, and leave a comment about the moment that chilled you most. Every interaction feeds the darkness and helps our channel dig deeper into the stories others fear to tell. Until our next haunting tale, keep the candles lit and remember, some curses never sleep.